Hi everyone, it's Hugo here. Today we're going to be showing you one of the most exciting new additions in Microsoft Fabric, which is DBT Fabric. What you're looking at in front of us is, a really common pattern which is emerging in enterprises that are implementing data stacks on Azure, and most commonly with Databricks. So Databricks, Azure infrastructure, and Synapse/Fabric implemented in one end-to-end ELT flow. One of the biggest challenges that we see data teams facing when they try to do this is stitching together this end-to-end system. There are a few little boxes here, right? You've got extraction, transformation, maybe you have a couple of layers here, activation in dashboarding tools like Power BI or machine learning back in Databricks again. And often people find that retaining visibility over this end-to-end flow into data pipeline failures is really hard. Recovering from failures automatically is also really hard. And implementing data quality tests to make sure that what lands up in this gold layer is also not obvious. So today I'm going to show you how you do that in Orchestra. So this is the Orchestra Portal, and to get this set up, what we're going to do is build our integrations. So if you head over to New Connection, you'll see that we support Databricks, DBT Core, Power BI. We also have a whole suite of Azure specific integrations, ones for Fabric, ones for VMs, Data Factory, and through our SDK, we can also support remote Python processes which are running in things like an Azure App Service or Azure Functions. If I take Fabric as an example, it's fairly straightforward setup. Make sure you have all the service principals set up and you'll be able to make that work. If I go ahead to one that we've got here already, you can see I've got my service principal ID, service principal key, which previously used to be called your sort of client secret and client ID, tenant ID, and then the server URL. You can find the server URL in Fabric. With something like Databricks, you're going to do a similar thing where you generate an access token within Databricks and then find your workspace URL, and then you can go ahead and update that credential. The final thing, which is super cool, is Orchestra supports DBT Fabric. So if you have your DBT code set up in a repository in something like GitHub, you can then add in your self-hosted URL if you're on GitHub Enterprise, put in the name of your repository, generate a token in GitHub, which will have access to this repository. And then you can drag and drop in your profiles.yaml straight into Orchestra. And just like that, we're ready to start building our pipeline. Cool. So here's one I've made earlier. We can see, I'll talk you through this and talk about how it relates a bit to the architecture diagram I showed before. First step of the pipeline is to do the extract and load. In this case, we're just running a pipeline in Data Factory. Interestingly, we're using Data Factory for the extracting and load. We're not using it for orchestration. That's what Orchestra's for. You can do the same thing in Synapse Analytics. And if I wanted to run a Databricks workflow that was executing an extract and load job, that would be done like so. And you would simply add a job ID here. The DBT part of this is super straightforward. You've got your DBT model that you've already built in Fabric, and when it comes to Orchestra, the orchestration is super simple. So you can just write any DBT command or any series of DBT commands here. In this case, I'm just building the whole project, but if you wanted to split this out in something like more of a medallion architecture, you'd do that like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to DBT build, but I'm only going to select models that are tagged with my code layer. Final step is activation. So We can do things like refresh data sets in Power BI, refresh data flows, and again, it's just a question of adding the relevant GUID and you're good to go. In terms of making sure you have visibility, Orchestra provides an out-the-box alerting system. So in this case, I've got an alert which is going to inform a stakeholder there's an error in the model with this nice custom message. You'll see I've got a Teams webhook set up, and we provide this sort of handy functionality where you can test the message. So this says that the Teams webhook is going to work. I'm going to send a dummy message, and then you can add that here. And that's really how simple it has to be. And the second part of what Orchestra does is run these pipelines. So now I'm going to show you what that looks like. So I'm not going to save my changes. I'm just going to move straight forward. And here you can see exactly the same thing we've built. Of course, under the hood, what's going on can be a lot more complicated. A data factory pipeline could have multiple steps. The DBT pipeline can also have multiple steps. And in addition to doing things like surfacing the logs for all of your DBT models within Orchestra, we can also drill down into the lineage. In the case of Azure Data Factory, we've got the full pipeline DAG surfaced here. And then when it comes to DBT, you'll see we have a pipeline with inbuilt data quality tests set up. So what I'm looking at here is a model materialization for this Fabric table called orders with products. I can see that the model has actually built, so I've managed to update the data in my table, which is pretty cool, but I've got a failing test. And then as a result, these dashboards haven't been refreshed. So what you do is you then go away into your Fabric environment, fix this, and then you can come back and just rerun this from the point of failure, which is super cool. But yeah, that's how you would build a and yeah, that's really how easy it has to be. And you can take advantage of features in Orchestra like our sort of data quality catalog and see all those different tables you built out in Fabric loaded into here. And that's really how simple it has to be. When it comes to orchestration, this ELT pattern might look difficult on paper, but in building it in Orchestra and getting full visibility with data quality testing doesn't have to be hard. So yeah, hit subscribe, and yeah, get in touch if you think we can be helpful.